We have a good topic for you today, a little bit controversial, but we're just going to be straight up and honest with you, landlords. Jackie, welcome.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And I'm very excited to talk about this topic because it's not really talked about. And it's about firing landlords and the increase in property managers getting rid of that C grade landlord,
Mm.
and sharing some insights as to why you could potentially get fired as a client. So very interesting, Jackie. You start us off. What are your thoughts?
Like we were just discussing off air, I am considering firing my first client. I have threatened it only once before. As a business owner, and it's a business decision, if this client is taking up too many resources from our team, if one maintenance request requires 4 or 5 phone calls, they're not willing to use our trades. They every time they get a statement, they're calling, there's a whole array of qualities that if they start stacking up in the wrong direction, it's not worth our time. Even if the property is seven, eight, $900 a week, if it's taking up 3 or 4 hours a week, just one property, it's not sustainable. So I'm considering it.
Yeah, we're going into an industry where there's so much burnout with property managers and business owners are also being more protective of their team because they want to look after their team because there's such a high turnover naturally in property management. They don't want them to go. So if you are giving your property manager a headache and they complain to their boss or their licensee that you are causing them a lot of stress in their life, and it could be even affecting their personal lives, that agency will just give you notice and say it's too hard. And I don't want owners to be offended by it. I want you to self-reflect a little bit as to why this could happen, so that you can stop those things that maybe you're doing, and learn from it with your new agency, and don't be a landlord that hops around from agent to agent, because we see that. And we actually had a client where she'd hopped around a couple of times and came to us, and we stupidly thought, you know what, no, we'll be different.
Yeah.
We can control her, was basically what we said. We can control her. And we couldn't control her. She was just next level. And you know what? It was maintenance, like you said.
Yeah.
It was micromanaging. It wasn't allowing us to do our job, and it wasn't trusting us to do our job. And if you don't trust us, I would rather not have you, because
Yeah.
it's like being in a relationship. Why would you be married to someone that doesn't trust you? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's exactly how it works. And
Yeah.
it's happening more and more. Like, I hear, and we were just talking about someone who fired 100 landlords
Yeah.
because they were C grade. And what's that thing that we say in the industry, that 20% of your owners
Oh,
make up 80% of your workload?
yeah, it's the 80-20 rule. So you'll find that 20% of your owners make up, 80% of your workload. And you actually see that in all of it. So smart business owners do need to reflect on that. And it's like, hey, do I really need that 20% of owners? But, we would not tolerate a C grade tenant. We wouldn't tolerate a tenant that's constantly behind and, breaking things at the property. So why should we tolerate owners that, take up so much more of our time and energy? And we don't want to be justifying ourselves all the time to how we do things. So yeah, what's the process in WA in terms of timeframes for terminations?
Yeah, so in WA, you need to give 28 days notice to terminate a property manager. I'm pretty sure it's the same in return as well. But to be honest, I mean, I when if it was 28 days notice on either party, like, obviously if I was giving 28 days notice to a landlord, if they wanted to leave early, I wouldn't care.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
yeah,
hold them to that, but that's me personally, and a personal business decision we make. If a landlord wants to terminate a property manager, though, in our contracts, it states that the agent is entitled to 50% of liquidated damages, so 50% of the management fees that agent would have otherwise received during that term of the contract. So it is written in there. My favourite saying is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I don't feel comfortable charging that. I would never charge anyone that if they were unhappy, because that's just, for me, it's not nice, but you can. So, and some agencies do it, so you have to keep that in mind. But I guess when it comes down to your contract, you would like make sure you know how long you're signing a contract for. 1 or 2 years is sort of really plenty. It shouldn't be any more than that. And I don't know if you notice it, but there's been a growing trend of landlords that want us to adjust our termination clause to the 7 days. And some of them have actually said 1 day. And I actually don't mind, because I would do that anyway. But I do say to them, if it's good for you, it's good for me. So if you want a 2-day termination contract, I can give you 2 days as well. So that's the rule, and they're happy with that.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. That's I should say that. I've had that requested a few times, and I pretty much just I say, we can make it whatever you want. If you're unhappy, you can leave that day. But yeah, it is something that I think it's going to become more common, especially for very small agencies that only have limited capacity, like my agency. We decline managements left, right, and center because they don't qualify for what we need. And I think it's going to become more and more common. A friend of mine has a real estate on the Gold Coast, and she terminated 6 owners because rather than looking at, oh, let's just grow, it's like, hey, which properties they're not maintained properly, we got to get 15 quotes for an oven replacement, or it's just, it doesn't qualify. So I think it should be in the back of the mind for landlords as well, because just because you want to work with us doesn't mean your behavior is going to qualify you to be a client for life.
Yeah, and like let's do a little business lesson as well for those watching. Where quite often what happens as well is some agencies, because there can be a lack of staff. And you and I are both probably pretty lucky with staff, but a lot of agencies struggle finding people. So what happens is, if they have someone, a property manager, leave their office, and they've got a portfolio, say, of 100 properties that they need to absorb with the team, and they're not replacing that staff member because they can't find anyone, what a business owner could potentially do is say, okay, well, if we're down a staff member, we're going to spread out that portfolio with everyone else. Everyone, go through your portfolio and find your 10 bottom clients that are either pain in the ass, don't pay enough fees, or the property's too far away, for example. And then the property manager will go through and go strike, and all of a sudden, they've got rid of their time-consuming landlords. The agency doesn't have to worry about replacing the property manager, and their revenue is probably going to still stay the same with no difference. So the business is looking after their cash flow, and that'll still stay strong. So that's sort of what happens inside some businesses. So it's like, isn't there a company over East? No, not over East. A company in the US, I think, where every year they go through their low performing staff members, and every year they fire the bottom 5 performers.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Just to keep everyone on top of their game.
Yeah. Interesting. But it has to be, it's also the emotional cost. I think it's like, I have a very, very small, maybe under 5 owners, but there's 2 options. I think 3 options how it goes. Either you terminate with the landlord and they go to another agency, that agency terminates with you and they go to another agency, or the third one, which is just not in anyone's best interest, is the property manager starts to resent that landlord, and they see their calls coming through and they're like, oh crap, not this person, and they don't call you back in reasonable timeframes. They don't get back to your emails because there's a level of resentment and a lack of respect on both ways because of how everything's been handled. So you see that.
So what could a landlord potentially do to, if they are worried that they might be that landlord? what it like is there any way or to be self-reflective as how you are? Like how does a landlord know if they are that landlord?
Well, do a little reflection audit. Go through your emails, copy and paste the property manager's emails into your email address and see how many times you're emailing. When they report a maintenance issue, are you just saying, hey, go ahead and proceed? Or are you saying, hey, get 3 quotes? Or are you saying, why is this broken? Did the tenant break it? Blah, blah, blah. So reflect back with an observer's eye. And you know what's funny, Ash? Because the people who will do this probably aren't the person that's a C class anyway, but it's like reflect back on how you've been communicating. And maybe even have a conversation with your property manager, maybe some transparency of like, hey, hope you're having a good day. How have you been finding me as a client? Is there anything I could improve on? Do you want me to increase my maintenance limit? Or how could I be better for you? Because, like we discussed before, it was like 40% of the industry left in Australia during COVID. Property managers, they left. So we're now working with a working pool that's 60% of what it was 4 years ago.
I love that. I love that's a great email to send to your property manager just to say, yeah, just checking in. How am I going as a client? Is there anything that I could sort of, do to help you do your job easier? That's a really nice segue into a property manager then responding to say, yeah, all good. We are finding that, it's been really hard to get those 3 quotes when you've asked, but this is our policy or something like that. That would be a really nice touch point. I'd love to see that happen more.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think, like with maintenance, it would be like either you give the go ahead or you maybe like at the worst, at the best, you just ask like one response back. Like a simple maintenance issue shouldn't be more than sort of one email each way and maybe one back or something like that. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be more than that. If you're seeing like there's a trail of 6 or 7 emails for
Yeah.
the toilet, that means you're high maintenance, Mr. Investor.
Yeah, 100%. I had a issue recently and I emailed the owner. The owner approved it. I assigned it to the tradesperson. A week later, the owner emailed me and said, hey, is this job done yet? I said, it's booked in with the electrician. And she said, and this is all separate emails. When's it booked in? Call the electrician. Hey, when's it booked in? It's booked in for Tuesday. And then she said, oh, this person's going Wednesday, her partner. Can we cancel that electrician that's been booked in for a week now so he can look at it? So we canceled the electrician. The husband was actually able to fix it, even though he's not an electrician. But that was like 7 or 8 correspondence regarding a ceiling fan. It's like, I felt like saying, I'll pay the $300 myself just to not have this conversation. So yeah, that's I think just reflection and then keeping that line of communication open all the time. Is there anything I could do as a client to make it easier for you? Like all my property managers for our investments have like $1,000 maintenance limit. I don't even want to hear about it. It's like, get it done. I use you because I trust you. When that trust is gone, yeah, it's going to be gone and then I'll have to look to change. But if you don't trust your property manager, that's a red flag.
It's a big thing for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's helpful for investors. I think it's really good to hear those insights. So from what's going on in our brain and how how it is. So thank you for sharing, and I'll see you next week.
See you then. All right, see you, Ash. Bye.